Peace and blessings. Vibe Tribe is on once again. It is yours truly, Bakari John Boy. I'm the founder of EY Movement. My wife, Amani John Boy, is the co-founder, and we focus on your spiritual, your physical, and your financial well-being. EY is a Yoruba word, and it stands for gentle character. But we also like to focus on EY, which is good character. So this is a ministry where we want to help you to grow, all right, in your knowledge of wisdom and understanding of both spiritual and natural things, right? So, I only bring on the best on this platform, only those who are qualified, to come on this platform, those who truly put in the work, and their work speaks for itself. And my good sister here, good sister Jennifer Higgins is going to come on, and she is going to give you some powerful information in regards to the importance of African-centered education. Family, I believe this is a very befitting time frame right now, due to not what's only going down in Florida with Ron DeSantis, but what's also going on throughout this country. For those who do not know, because I know some of you don't like to go on the news, I get it. Okay, but it's good to keep up with current events so you can know what's happening. Okay, that being said, you have the African-centered education being attacked. Now, you may say, Brother Bakari, what's new, right? I get it. Okay, but here we are in 2023. Okay, last year, if you don't know, the Crown Act was passed as it relates to us wearing our hair, right? So for those who don't think that we're still dealing with discrimination, this is the reason why you need to keep up with current events, because the curriculums are being fought. Okay, and right now it's a fear of us coming into the knowledge of self. Why? Okay, so that we will not be liberated mentally. Okay, so now we have a psychologist, okay, who deals with those who are in school, okay, and she's going to actually share with us on this evening her experience as it relates to why it's so important for African-centered education to be taught. She has done her evaluations, okay, so she's not just coming on here just talking. All right, this is her actually doing her body work as a certified, okay, a clinician, having her license, okay, as a psychologist. All right, so we get ready to kick it off, but before we do, okay, please like, share, subscribe, invite, click that notification bell if you're on YouTube, click that notification bell if you're on Facebook, so you can know whenever we're getting ready to go live. We'll be back right after this short commercial break. Okay, peace to the fam. The Truth and Power Corner in the building. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love being shown to you, sis. Salute the sister Jennifer and Regeneration 180. All right. We got some fam in here in the building backing you up. Okay, my queen, peace and blessings. Thank you so much for tuning in. Beautiful. Appreciate your continued love and support. And you are welcome, family. No problem. Easy day. Anything less would be uncivilized, right? This is what we do. We are unapologetically proud to be African. You understand? And we get ready to kick this thing off. Queen, how are you doing this evening, my sister?
I'm doing well. How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for action. I want to say from my wife and I, thank you so much for taking out the time for you to come on. All right. And share your expertise,
Absolutely.
with
you are
family.
Yes.
We greatly appreciate that, because we need, as you know, we need individuals like you. You're so important, to us. So I just want to say from the family, and I know I can speak on our behalf as a people, for those of us who know how important your work is, we just want to say thank you before we start.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for making me comfortable in this setting.
Hey,
You
you're
know,
welcome, family.
we already talked about my introvertness, but thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. You are welcome. So, she and I, we had a very good dialogue prior to her coming on. And as I told my sister, I said, like I said before the commercial break, this is a very befitting time, as we all know. We've been taught into this mindset, right? Of us uh, not accepting ourselves, and it's something that it's a learned behavior. It's not something that we just do, right?
Right.
So if you would, talk to us, if you will. First, tell us your background, and let's roll on into, you know, uh, why do you feel like it's so important for African centered education?
Okay. So, just a little background on me. I am a school psychologist, a certified school psychologist, certified in Washington, D.C. So, I'm in the D.C., Baltimore area. And so, a school psychologist is not necessarily the same thing. We don't do the same things as a clinical psychologist would. Usually, I guess typically, people are more familiar with counseling and clinical psychologists. So, a school psychologist is different in that we focus on human behavior, but not just human behavior, child development in particular. And with that, we discover, what is the problem with different aspects of the schooling environment as it pertains to individual children learning and their learning styles, their learning methods, their abilities. So we focus on the child in the classroom and how learning and behavior affects their time in the classroom. Um, Most of school psychologists in the country, we focus on testing. We are what you would call gatekeepers of special education, which is a it's a big turnoff for me. I remember being at Howard University. I graduated from Howard University with my master's in school psych, and we only had at Howard University now, which is the HBCU, there was
Mhm.
only one class that
Wow.
pertains to Black child development. Now, if you think about it, what Howard stands for, you would think that there would be more, of a foundation of Black
Yeah,
child development, but of
that's
course,
still shocking.
yeah, absolutely,
That is
and
still shocking when I hear you say that.
yeah, and but most of our coursework pertain to, like I said, learning and behavior, but also how to test children, what to look for, observation techniques, things like that. So it was very helpful. It's very helpful, but I really wish that, especially my HBCU, I really wish that more of the foundation of our learning would be based on and focused on African children or children of African descent. So most of my training of African centered psychology going forward was on my own. You know, I've been in education for 20 years. 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. And,
Wow, you're too young for that.
and most of that time was actually it's probably a split between being a classroom teacher and being a classroom teacher, not assistant, but as school psychologists, we stand along next to teachers to help them to either communicate or either message better or um, you know to make learning more comfortable for the student, the individual student. So
Hmm.
so I've spent half time in the classroom and half time alongside the classroom, and it works. It works for me. My training works for me. But we focus on academic and behavioral interventions. And so, stepping outside the school system, which is what I did in 2017, I knew that I was done with diagnosing, well, not necessarily diagnosing, but um, focusing on individual problems with individual students. And I knew that I had to focus on our children and what our children need. So my observations in the school setting brought me to where I am today, which is out of the system and doing things for myself and creating this educational environment, which I believe our children will benefit from.
Wow, that's powerful. And again, thank you for you using your gifts and your talents because as we had discussed, you could have made a lot more money doing something else,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
but you you know, but you chose, to use your gifts to be able to help to liberate our people. So I have to celebrate you for that because uh, this is a perfect example of why education is so important too, because we got to celebrate our queens. We got to put the queens back on the throne. And women like my wife and yourself, Buddy Shabazz, Coretta Scott King,
Mm-hmm.
all of you, truly wear that crown royally. So I have to salute you for that, because it's always been the women out there on the forefront, even with the Fruit of Islam and
Mm-hmm.
the Black Panther Party. Our
Absolutely.
women has always been out there fighting alongside of us
Mm-hmm.
for the liberation of our people. So,
Absolutely.
because we talk about education, right? So let's educate.
Right. That's right. That's right. All right.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
let's get it. So why homeschooling is only a first step in the process of freeing ourselves from the education system? Let's dive into the question and answer
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've seen a a great shift in the past. I would say, I think it was pre-pandemic actually. Our people have been pulling their children out of school, which is excellent. um, Deciding to sacrifice, you know, whether it be money or, making sacrifices for their children. And that's, that is a job of a parent to do, is to make sacrifices for their children. And we've seen a lot of our Black mothers and Black fathers pull their children out of school, and to learn, and to educate themselves. Now, some of it has been African centered. I'm not sure, the statistics on how many, versus African centered versus, religious based, or whatever the reason that they pulled their children out. It's good to see the number of parents do that. But I think that, when it comes to African centered education in particular, and I'll kind of define what that is, because many people, I think they think it's a little bit more than what it is. African centered education is to put, number one, the African child in the center of the learning experience. That's kind of a given. But then also to, teach based on African values, African philosophies, and African mores. Um, and we don't see tons and tons of people doing it. I think that the first step of just pulling your child out of school, out of public schooling, is excellent. However, I think it's only a first step, because at a certain point, it first of all, it only, individualism is one of the problems that we inquire. I'm sorry, not inquire, but, face when we are, basically trying to learn who we are. Okay, and we, as an African people, we haven't been traditionally individual people. We have, learned together in a group. We have shared a lot of our experiences are, community experiences based on history, traditionally in history, and we've gotten away from that, being individuals in this Eurocentric type of model of how they view life and how they have set things up. We're missing that element of coming together again. So I think that, one of the most important things about schooling is, number one, knowing thyself, but also knowing each other. Okay, and learning to collaborate and to cooperate with each other. That's a missing portion of what it is that we are doing when we are homeschooling. So I like to think of homeschooling as a first step, but we should be teaching our children together, because at a certain point, they're going to be working together. whether they're going to be working side by side or working, networking with each other. They're going to be working with each other. And so how do they interact, and how do they value their brother or sister? How do they actually live the principles of the Nguzo Saba? They can't do that alone. The Nguzo Saba is not something that's just me, I'm gonna do it, and that's it. There's a lot of community stuff going on there. So definitely pulling your child out of school is great, but at a certain point, there has to be some type of collective education going on.
I like what the Truth and Power Corner said. It is so difficult to pull your children out,
Oh yeah,
especially
definitely.
when they are teenagers and they start to have their own thoughts.
Right.
Wow. And some feel that this society is real and that they need these people. And then um,
I think
M.
that's really
Roberts
important.
says,
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
a former teacher. If I had children, I definitely wouldn't want them in traditional schools.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that African centered education, when it's in a group setting, is it does three things for us. Okay. The first thing that it does is that it takes us back to the heart of what education truly is. Okay. It's truly the true function of education is the process of social, cultural, and uh, spiritual transmission from one generation to the next generation. So it's not really about job preparation, as Dr. Amos Wilson, uh, one of my idols, what he said. It's not truly about just job preparation. It's more so about interpersonal and interpersonal relationships. And so, because we are at a loss with how to actually deal with each other, let's be real. We don't know how to deal with each other. This is something that will kind of strengthen that cord. Another thing that it does is that it really puts responsibility back in our hands. I was going to say our homes, well, our homes first, but also our hands. And so, because we are students of the generation that came before us, we have now learned through their struggles of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. We have now learned what works and what does not work, what we should be doing or what we should continue to do, and the things that we should stop doing. And so it just kind of builds on the knowledge and skill of our people. And if we don't have our children under our umbrella, then how can we actually pass along that knowledge? And the last thing that I see that really takes place here is that it gives us a African-centered education, gives us a it sets the stage for sovereignty, African sovereignty, which is basically the goal. The goal. We want to be a sovereign people. We are not that if we continue to send our children to the quote unquote enemy. Well, it is the system that is the enemy, to get fed. Okay. And so we don't want them to continue to consume the messages, the agendas, the propaganda that's being fed to them every day. We need to get out of this whole white liberal chokehold that we seem to be struggling under, because it's hard to breathe. So yeah, I think that's really important. And as Sister Melly said, Truth to Power Corner, what she said is very true. The earlier that we do this, pull our children, the more impact it will have. It's going to be a little bit more difficult if you kind of work with if a child has been under this indoctrination for quite some time. It's going to be hard, especially socially, for them to adjust to something new. They're going to be very resistant to it. So it's really important, even though it's not a total fail. We do need to think about these things earlier. So I implore those who have small children, young children, or those who are going to have children in the future or who are pregnant, to think about these things prior to, uh, you know, um, the child being of age for school.
I love the comments. But I do say I love that more and African/Black families are homeschooling. That is true. It is
Mhm.
increasing.
Mhm.
Definitely is. My oldest moon child is 12 and has never, wow, been to public
Wonderful.
school. And yes, she has social. Yes, and yes, she has
Mhm.
socialization skills. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that some people like to say, that when you do that, they won't have social skills. That
Yeah.
don't really make sense to me, especially when you're interacting with them and they have to communicate.
That's right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that is I would say when I am I do consultations with parents who are either transitioning to homeschooling or transitioning to a different type of schooling or an alternative educational setting. And one of the biggest, I think, barriers or trouble points that they come up under is, but I don't want them to get behind, or I don't want them to be left out, whether it be sports or whether it be different type of extracurricular activities that are hosted at the school. They feel like they're missing out on something. And as the sister was saying, there are other ways of socialization, and the way that the schools socialize our children is not necessarily the quote unquote right way. It is not our way. Even though it's fine to be included in sports and all those other things, but there are other. Um, I think that people lose sight of what socialization really is. It's not just kind of being in this diverse kind of world. It's about, do you know how to deal with people? Do you know how to deal with people? Collaborate with them, or is your world just kind of internal? And so we're finding that a lot of people are, and there's research that supports that. A lot of people who are homeschooling or children who are homeschooling have on par to even better socialization skills than their kind of counterparts that attend public schools. So that's not really an issue or concern that people should have.
that's powerful. So let's talk about the history of education in America. That's if you haven't already touched on how that impacts our ability to create our own industries as a
Hmm.
people, and how having our own African centered system could change that.
Yeah. So okay, so let me start here. Um, Maybe some people know the history of education here in America. I'm going to kind of go through it briefly. I'm trying to be brief with it, because
See,
but so our education system here in America is copied from, or built on the Prussian system, educational system. And so a long time ago, Russia used to be Prussia, and they trained their soldiers in a type of way for them to, from school age, they trained their soldiers in a certain type of way in order for them to be obedient, for them to be, not really having their own thoughts, only thinking for their country and what the country's goals are. And so a long time ago, America kind of brought that system to their system. Well, actually, they didn't have a system yet. They created a system based on that. Um, Several years passed. Things were cooking, and you have power hitters like John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, who took it upon themselves, because they were very wealthy, to impact what's happening in the schools. So now we have a system that is built on different industries. It's not the same industries as it was before, back when, after the Depression, when they got involved, when they started funding the schools and kind of telling the schools, okay, this is what we want to happen here. Now we have names like, and they're not necessarily, these names are not necessarily directly impacting the school, not in a direct way, but definitely indirectly. We have Bill Gates, We still have Carnegie, the Carnegie family still putting their input in. We have Zuckerberg. So we have all of these different forces with money, and these forces tend to, change the narrative or add a different narrative to what's going on in school. And so it's a lot of indoctrination, a lot of indoctrination then, a lot of indoctrination now. The indoctrination won't stop. And so, um, it's my belief that creating our own system is not going to really, it's not going to be overnight. It's definitely not going to be overnight, because the system that was built, with us not even in mind, because at first we weren't even part of the system. Then they integrated us into the system, but still not really directly, addressing our needs, because we're totally two different people with two different, worldviews and philosophical ways of life. Um, it's never going to change. And so for us to keep trying to, well, number one, accept what they're trying to give us in terms of racially inclusive education or multicultural education. All of these things are just kind of band-aids. They're not really focusing on us. And so us taking the time to start building, which is what we are doing at Regeneration 180 with the national and the national calabash of Echelon Studies. We are creating that system, that new system for our children. So we're not just interested in creating African-centered schools. We are interested in connecting those schools so that so our children will be able to basically network and be able to form these different industries to compete with the industries that already exist. So we have the metaverse as an industry. We have AI as an industry. All of these things are great for our children to learn about. They should learn about these things, and they should be, I want to say fully versed in it, but there needs to be a counter to many of these things, because this is all part of life. As life goes on, we will have to integrate some of these things into our life, but I mean, well, as much as we want to, but we need to kind of set a stage for our children to create industries that our people can have power within. So it's a long process that we are willing to take. Myself and the board of education for NCAS. I have some of my board members in the audience today. Thank you for coming on and supporting. But yeah, it is a long process, but it is something that needs to be done. If not now, then when would we ever do that? And so it's not a quick fix, but our children deserve that much, and their children as well.
That's right. I totally agree. That's absolutely phenomenal. So let's deal with why research, gathering data, is important as we plant more African-centered schools, and how Regeneration 180 is taking the lead in ensuring that Black American children are receiving quality.
Okay. So research is definitely important because we're doing something that has never been done before. So whenever you're doing something that's never been done before, everything is just a theory. And I don't know if I explained this or mentioned it before, but everything that we do at Regeneration 180, not everything, but 95% of what we do is based on the theories and teachings of Dr. Amos Wilson. So because we are actually putting these things into practice, we need to make sure that we are giving our children a quality education by testing what's happening. If something is not working, we need to make an adjustment. I think that our people are ready for a change, and they're ready for something new. However, we get kind of antsy. We get kind of antsy. It's not fast enough. And I think that good things come in time, and with the necessary processes of testing and checking to see, okay, does this work? I think that that brings quality to what we're doing. Here in the DC area, we've planted our first NCAS school, and we call this school our demonstration school. A demonstration school, that term is used in education when either a university or a college or an educational organization, when they set up an educational environment that is different in some way than the traditional educational environment. And so because we are doing something that's totally different, we decided to make this school our demonstration school. That just means that we're testing things out. We are testing new curriculum. We're testing new teaching methods. And again, all of this is based on research, but we're basically just testing things and seeing how things work actually in action. It's one thing to talk about something, but to actually do it, we need to make sure it's working. So the demonstration school for NCAS is located here in outside of DC, Prince George's County, Maryland, and we're just excited that about what's going to be occurring over the years, because like I said, it's not going to be a quick fix, but it's definitely something that our children deserve. So.
Okay, in your opinion, what is the elements of a quality African-centered school program?
Quality. I think that quality comes from, well, number one, you you really should ask yourself, what is the goal of the school? What is it that they want to do with my child, and what is the expected outcome based on how they're going to actually go through with the plan. Um, but I think it's more important for the parent and for the school to be on the same page. Is this school really, valuing the things that we value in the home? To me, everything starts from home culture. And if you don't have the family culture in the home, then actually that could be something that you could learn from that institution. But the two most important things are, what are the outcomes? What is it that this school is going to set my child up to be able to do? Is it college prep? Is it business prep? Is it, just kind of not really nothing prep, just kind of knowing themselves? I think that there has to be an element of community. It has to be an element of self survival, both of those things. So that's definitely important when you're trying to choose a school. And there's a lot of other things that can come into play. I could go on and on about that, but I think those are the two most important things.
Well, if you'd like to elaborate more, please feel free to do so.
Yeah. So our schools, or the NCAS system, we are not college prep. Okay. I like to say that, of course, our children will be able to. I mean, of course, the students under the NCAS system would be able to attend college and succeed. But we are more concerned about, like I said, building industries. Giving our children the chance to step out there and be bosses. Be the bosses that they are. We're here to kind of oversee the education of the messengers of the new generation, the business people of the new generation. And so we are not prepping them for college. We're not prepping them for the next state or the next stage of this indoctrination. I know a lot of people may kind of be uncomfortable with the fact that I call college indoctrination, but it is the second layer. And so that's what we are doing now. Now, is it necessarily bad that other schools are college prep? No, not necessarily. I think that the most important thing when it comes to making sure that you are within a quality educational system is how I'm sorry, not education system, but a quality African-centered program is how close is that program to the government. So you got like charter schools that are African centered. And so charter schools are very close to the government. They have certain things that they need to fulfill in order to continue to get funding from the government. So charter schools, they're an option, but in my personal opinion, they are not an option because there's still an element of the system that's hanging around there. So I would encourage our people to choose independent African centered schools, private African centered schools, and even if you are a schooler, co-ops and things like that, in order to get that community and collective feel. Um, yeah.
Wonderful. That's definitely a powerful take. Uh, I like what you said about, the homeschooling situation. I really feel like we have to get back to the homeschooling side. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to take an approach of it being outside of academia, if you will, because I think that a lot of times we think about that, and soon as we hear that terminology, our minds trigger and automatically think academia.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think that um, for those parents who are not teachers and what have you, outside of academia, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the arena rather of academia, I think that, we have to get back to relying on ourselves.
Absolutely.
You're right. I feel like that's really a missing piece there because we have lost the responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of
Yeah.
educating our children at home. And that's what I feel like is a missing piece too. With the African centered side of the house is that we understood prior to colonization that it is our responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that as parents, sometimes we put too much weight on the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like we have to get that sense of responsibility back and stop
Absolutely.
pushing all the responsibility on the teacher that's in academia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. We need to get back to the fact that we are our children's first teacher, and we can't. And it seems kind of. It seems as though when I talk to, because I do consultations, like I said, for those who are kind of testing the waters to see if they want to do homeschooling. I often tell them that if you're not going to make the decision now to pull your child, or kind of dramatically switch up the situation, at least first start with something that I used to call it family class. I used to call it family class. And the first thing that a child should know before they step out in any situation that involves other people or other cultures or anything, they need to know what it is that their family values. They need to know the principles to live by within this household, and setting that tone, setting that stage in the house first. Even though they do spend 8 hours a day at this kind of foreign land that's not home based, they are kind of more equipped to deal with some of these social and behavioral problems that do come up. What if somebody does call me the N word? What if somebody, it's a lot of things that go into what we can actually teach our children at home, whether they are being formally homeschooled or not. We need to actually take the time to teach them what the culture of the house is and how we deal with people on the outside. So that's a really good point that you made. Dealing with the non-academic side and the academic side. But I think that character. I talk a lot about character being kind of the driving force of everything that we do. In EFI, that's character is very important. And so, you know, making sure that they present themselves as a responsible character outside the home is very important. So,
I have a question. I believe it's Miss Devasha. Hopefully,
Mr.
I'm saying your name right, sister. It says, as an African-centered school, is there a certain accreditation that parents may need to be made aware of if interested in their child or children participating?
Certain accreditation that parents. Um, I think I understand the question. So, accreditation in terms of African centered schooling, there is no accreditation in terms of like our, African centered schooling. However, that is something that, should be thought about, down the line is, determining what is a quality African centered schooling program. And so I think that's what she's asking. But that is one of the things that we at Regeneration 180 are inspiring to do, because Regeneration 180 is not just an organization that has a school. We are a research entity. So, like I said before, research is really important to us because whatever we do now, whether it works or doesn't work, it's going to be put out there. And so we want to make sure that it actually works and it actually benefits our children. So accreditation, there is no accreditation entity right now in terms of African-centered education, but I believe that in the future there will be.
Okay, so it said positive cultural identity among Black students is proven to help increase academic performance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. And sis said, yes, that's what I'm asking for listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And I love what sis said because I always say this, that we lack confidence because we don't know our accomplishments. And it's imperative that we educate our children as it relates to our heroes. I think it's important too to implement our warriors like Shaka Zulu, like Thomas Sankara, Ya Santiwa, you know what I'm saying? Queen Nanny, right?
Right.
Queen Nzinga, right? So we can see ourselves, and also we can see that we were people of courage.
Right.
You understand? Because so many times what's being presented to our children is defeat.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? But not talking about, how Thomas Sankara actually overturned the French, and Burkina Faso used to be called Upper Volta until our people stood up and fought and took charge.
Yep. Absolutely.
You understand? And I really feel like that Mama, Betty Shabazz is not even spoken about her being a collegiate person. You know what I'm saying? How she had and Betty Shabazz, how they were collegiate. They had accreditations.
Right.
These women were not just at home cooking and frying chicken and just the minister's beckoning call. They were warrior queens.
Right.
They were very educated women.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that it's imperative that the light is shined on these positives. Because as we all know, our history does not start with slavery.
Right.
And I think it's imperative that we know about the inventions that we actually did, like the GPS, like the internet.
Right.
Right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The gas mask, the street light. You understand? And so I think it's very important because then now we see our intellectual power. Now we see that we don't just sing, rap, dance, play football, basketball, that we are actually intellectuals dealing with Imhotep.
Yep.
You understand? And
Yeah.
so I think that this is the reason why we have to home in on the educational piece and also culture, so that way we will have pride in who we are, and we won't praise, you know what I'm saying, another ethnic group, like as if though we don't have anything to be proud of, and as if though they're also the epitome of morality when they're not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because all of the people that you just named are solution they were solution driven people. Okay. Our people have always been solution driven people. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about Amos Wilson being kind of the inspiration of what we are doing at Regeneration 180, is that we are taking some of these, well, all of these the names that you just named, mentioned, but then also other people and events throughout our history, and we are seeing the accomplishments that they have made, and our children will be able to kind of reflect on that and say, okay, what can I do? What can I do? So we are not just research based, but we are solution driven. We are setting up an environment where our children can solve some of the problems that we are going through now, because we're doing our best right now. We are doing our best with what we know, to be able to, put a dent in it. But there's so much more that needs to be done before we are actually a sovereign people. So, solution driven is definitely, I believe, it should be kind of one of the purposes of what a school does. Um, and not just kind of focusing on, the status quo of what's already going on and the things that, are kind of defeating us. We need to actually bring solutions to the table. So, jobs for our people, creating an economic base for our people to stand on, and being able to. We want a seat at the table, kind of. We want a seat at the table. We need to talk about, we need to talk amongst ourselves first before we even do that. So if we can find it in our strength to stand up, have conversations with each other, we'll be able to be more equipped to sit at that table and say, hey, this is no, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do that. We need power when it comes, we need power coming out of our mouth, and we can't stay under them. They will never teach us how to be powerful. Okay, we hear that all the time. Our enemy will never teach us how to get out of the situation that we are in. So we need to, pull it back and see what we can do on our own.
That's right, sis. I think that it's very evident for those who have sight and are waking consciously that their way of life does not work for us.
Mm-hmm.
It has not, it will not, and it never will.
It never will. It
You
never
know,
will.
and I love what you said, because that's another thing I hear a lot of people talking about is economics. And my wife and I, we're in the financial industry, licensed at that, and with that being said, we have to stop relying on them to teach us what empowers us, because racism is about power.
That's right.
So why would they empower us when they want us to be powerless so they can overpower us?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So mom and dad, it's important that you learn about economics, you learn how credit works, you learn, what is going to be looked at to purchase a home. Okay. You learn about savings, you learn about investing, right? And stop sitting back just saying, oh, I want my child to learn these things.
Right.
But you lack the knowledge. Remember, you're the elder. And the African way is the elder teaches the younger. Not that we can't learn anything from the youth. However, when it comes to educating them about life skills, the basic life skills like budgeting, giving them responsibility, and then the root word in responsibility is being responsible.
That's right.
Right? So this goes along with homeschooling as well. So let's not just leave it at the door when we're talking about science and mathematics. No, we're talking about life survival skill sets
Right.
that should also be incorporated in homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so I was very fortunate. I'm from New York. For those who do not know, okay, and I was fortunate to have been taught um, about what was it in the financial arena, accounting.
Okay.
So we learned accounting. However, my first accounting class should have been at home.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so this is the reason why I think that this African Center education, homeschooling, I believe it should not just be limited to, the academia piece, but it also should be incorporated with life surviving skills where your child is going to need it when they go out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know, and to be able to be a productive, not only citizen, but an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Adulting is very important,
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's imperative that we get that piece in there too. Is there anything else that you would like to inject in your closing statement? The floor is yours. I want you to be able to share whatever you would like to share, and then after that, we'll close out.
No, I think this was a really good conversation. I just want to kind of reiterate that, you know, us bringing our child into the home and making sure that they are taught in a loving and caring environment that's not it's not disgruntled to their spirit. I think that's only starting point. At a certain point, we're going to have to make sure that we are um, teaching and learning in a collective kind of setting. That's definitely important for how our children are going to interact with each other now and how they interact with each other when we are long gone. I mean, they're going to have to depend on themselves if they're part of this movement. If they're part of this movement, they're going to have to learn how to work with each other. So that's definitely an important element of what we are doing here at Regeneration 180 and NCAS. Like I said, homeschooling is great, but there's many other layers to our liberation that need to be, broke through. And so, the burning house that MLK talked about, it's not just political. We got other doors to knock down. We got the education door to knock down. We got the the what do I said? I said politics, the judicial system. So there's a lot of things that we have to attack, at once.
I like that.
I believe that it's doable if we are doing it, how our ancestors taught us, together.
Yeah, that's true, because I feel like we definitely need to elaborate on the importance, because a lot of people, even the adults, don't know that the governor, he or she writes the state constitution, and how legislation, which is legal, is actual legal documentation that's
Mm,
enforced, that affects us. And if we don't think that, then what about the Jim Crow laws?
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Right? Because
Right.
many people don't think that it matters who's in political power, but I don't beg to differ. I differ because, as the proverb says, when the unjust rule, the people mourn,
Mm,
but when the righteous rule, the people rejoice.
mm,
That being said, it matters who's in political power, because they're the ones who write law.
absolutely.
And law in turn affects us. And if we don't believe it, then what about the Civil Rights Act? What about the Equal Opportunity, Act? Okay, what about the Crown Act? Okay, all these things are put into play. Now, of course, when you got an unjust person, it's not that law is not there. This is
Mhm,
the reason why we have to occupy these seats as
mm,
well, so that justice can be served.
Right.
Okay, so that justice, now I'm not sitting there and saying and wait until a just person get in position. No, I'm just saying the reality is we need to get in power so we can be in power so that we can influence legislation on a broader scale.
Right.
Okay, because now you're dealing with your local government, you're dealing with the commissioner, you're dealing with your sheriff, you're dealing with the DA. Okay, all those positions matter. Why? Because they're the ones who make those decisions.
Right. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
We have to be competent enough to sit at the table and to communicate with these people to let them know what it is that we need, and I'm sure they know what we need, but they need to hear it from our mouths.
Right.
And it's different coming from our mouths is that we need this. And it's not like we are waiting for anyone to give us anything, but we need the space to be able to maneuver, the way that we need to maneuver. So.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, you got people like DeSantis in power. So prove me wrong.
Right.
Look at what he's doing.
Right.
So see, for those who sitting back and thinking that it don't matter, well, if that doesn't teach you a lesson, and history, if it doesn't teach you a lesson about people in power who don't care nothing about us, okay, won't even hold these individuals accountable that commit certain crimes. And what I'm saying is that we have to educate our children so they can go into these roles and teach them the importance of them being in these roles that actually affect us in a legal matter as well. Legal, economic, you know what I'm saying? Like dealing with the STEM programs, right? All those type of things like that actually influences our lives on a daily basis. I believe that we have to understand the scope of those occupations so that way we can have a better understanding, and so that our children will want to be in more affluent situations and more influential occupations that's going to impact us directly in our daily lives.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
I say, oh, well, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
All right. You weren't on it for too long, brother. You weren't on it.
Oh, man. So, all right, then, EI, if you don't have any other words, family, thank you all for tuning in on this evening. We greatly appreciate it. All the brothers and sisters that's on the staff with our good sister, we give thanks. Here is our sister information. Okay, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook. That is their website. If you want to make any type of donations, or if you want to learn more about the work that our good sister does, as well as her team, okay, you can find it there. As well as if you want to enroll your children, okay, into our sister's schooling, okay, that there go the information right there. All right, family. All right. So that being said, all hearts and minds clear.
Thank you, Brother Kakari, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, you welcome, family. No problem at all. And again, family, we are EY Pele Movement. Okay, stands for Gentle Character Movement. Okay, we come on every Sunday and Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, please make sure that you tune in. If you haven't already, please make sure you like, subscribe, invite, and share. And we appreciate it. Have a blessed rest of your evening, and may your week be the same.